Welcome to episode 206 of the Microsoft Cloud IT Pro podcast, recorded live on November 27th, 2020. This is a show about Microsoft 365 and Azure from the perspective of IT pros and end users, where we discuss a topic or recent news and how it relates to you. Today, Ben and Scott decide to start an annual Gadget Geek Out episode when they record the day after Thanksgiving. So they have a slightly extended episode to discuss some of their favorite hardware and software that they've purchased and used throughout the last year. So, Scott, it is the Friday after Thanksgiving in the U.S. I was talking to somebody today. Thanksgiving is a U.S. holiday, but Black Friday appears to be a global holiday.
Should you live someplace in the world that is subject to sales, then it can be a little bit of a phenomenon. So there are many retailers that line up the same way, but it is different. Like I remember when I was in Australia, they used to have Black Friday there, but totally different. Not to the level that the US does it, and especially not the what in past years when retail stores have been open day of, the stampedes and things like that.
Yes.
But Black Friday is a bit of a global phenomenon.
Which is kind of funny considering how it goes hand in hand with a US holiday. But...
yes. Well, retailers want to make money when they can make money, right? And there's nothing that changes about any of that.
That is true. So here we are, Friday afternoon recording. And let's be fair, on the Friday after Thanksgiving, we don't necessarily feel like diving into tech. So after 3 years of this podcast, we decided to start an annual tradition if we record on the Friday after Thanksgiving.
You decided, and I went along with it because it was nice and easy. I could load up on Turkey before this and still talk my way through it.
Yes. Well, technically, you mentioned it in the last episode, and I didn't catch it when you said it live. I just caught it when I was listening to it after the fact. You said we should do a Gadget Geek Out. We
should. I think it'd be good. I've bought so much stuff lately to support like this reality of work from home and other things. I think there's just a ton going on there. There's all sorts of useful software that's come out over the past year. And I would imagine there's folks out there who maybe haven't heard of some of the things that we use to make our lives better. Yes, I agree. And what better day to do it than the day that everybody goes and buys gadgets because they're on sale. Yep. Yeah, and the nice thing is, if we get this out in time, many of these things will still be on sale as well. So back to that whole Black Friday being a U.S. day of shopping and a phenomenon kind of thing, many retailers this year, because retail stores were not open, they opted to do multiple shopping events and multiple bursts and releases of inventory, and those are still ongoing. And even as inventory starts to draw down, some retailers are letting you back order things along the way. For example, this morning, in a just fit of like, well, this was the time for this to happen, our vacuum cleaner broke, and we happen to have a Dyson vacuum cleaner that we like a whole bunch, and there's a bunch of Dysons on sale today that are all back ordered until like the end of December easily. But I can live a couple weeks like with like one of the crappy attachments on the Dyson versus like the regular one, and kind of limp by with it and gladly order something at 50% off just to have it show up eventually.
Exactly. And I've noticed a lot of stuff too. They have there's some companies that are just doing November sales. I noticed a lot of Black Friday stuff starting even before Thanksgiving this year. And like you said, some of them even.
So all that is born out of that retail stores are not open on the same cadence. Like if they're open at all, they are open on a totally compressed schedule. And hey, like we're in the US, there's this whole pandemic thing, and we really do suck at it here. So there's a lot of people that are scared to go out and shop. So retail shopping has changed fundamentally over this holiday season in that it is turning into an online shopping phenomenon. So being that you're doing everything online, you want to be able to spread that load as much as you can, whether you're looking for an Xbox Series X or a PlayStation 5 or a vacuum cleaner or a new blender or sheets for your bed, whatever it is, right? You want people to be able to get in and purchase those different things and have them make it to their houses in an okay amount of time.
Exactly. So, all that being said, I don't even know how to start with the gadgets. I started listing out some of the gadgets that I have. Some of these I have used for a while. Some of them I think are new this year. Some of them, frankly, I can't even remember when we bought them versus when we talked about stuff on the podcast. I have a lot of gadgets. I have a problem.
I too have a bit of an issue. So the way I approached putting this list together was there are things that I've purchased over the last year that make my life easier, and I kind of like pick things that I hadn't necessarily bought recently, but that I have also used recently. So it wasn't like I just bought this gadget and it was hanging around, or I picked up this piece of software. It is something that I use on a daily, if not weekly, kind of cadence, just to make sure that it's valid and ready to go. So you want to start, or you want me to?
Go for it. I'm curious to see what your first gadget is. Is this going to be like the one you seem to use the most on a day-to-day basis, or is this just a random one off your list?
So no. So I can absolutely go with one that I use the most on a day-to-day basis. With many of us working from home now, like, you know, if you're watching this on YouTube and you see the video, like we're sitting here with microphones and headphones and things in front of us, and like the audio's, you know, hopefully sounds okay. It's tough to go through a day of online meetings and wear headphones all day, whether you're doing like over-ear headphones or in my case, for the past year and a half, maybe, I had a really nice pair of in-ear Jabras, and they were great. I could walk 30 feet away from my computer. Clarity was awesome. 8-hour battery life. They were like behind the neck, wraparound kind of headphones.
Yep.
But when you're spending 8 hours a day on the phone, which like now that becomes more and more the reality of like video calls and video meetings and things like that, it starts to like having an in-ear headphone starts to wear on you a little bit. So I switched to an over-ear headset, and that was like, okay, I can do that. But then, you know, your like ears, like honestly, they get sweaty. The cups start to like get all grungy. Like it's no good. So I bought a Jabra Speak. So I went for the cheaper one, the Jabra Speak 510. And it's a Bluetooth speakerphone. It's meant to sit in like the middle of a desk and have a couple people talk around it. But I'm just using it on my desk right in front of me, and it's just wired into my dock and kind of always ready to go. So that acts as both a speakerphone, so I can hear output from it, and it also acts as a microphone. The quality is awesome as long as the thing's hardwired and not Bluetooth. I don't have to worry about battery life when I'm at my desk because it's always plugged in over USB. It's rock solid, works in Zoom, Skype, you name it, right? I can use it as a microphone from both my Mac and Windows. And it has made things like having to hop on conference calls just so much easier. Like if you're running around the house and you forgot to put your headphones in, or maybe you were charging them, they were on the charger or something like that is all out the window. I can just walk up to my computer. I can hit a button on the Jabra Speak and on the little puck, or you know, I just start my meeting and like I'm ready to go. And it is absolutely delightful. The noise canceling's awesome. Like I never get complaints about people hearing an echo or anything on the other end. And like 2 thumbs up. Like I used to have one of these a long time ago for when I was traveling around, and I couldn't use it a lot. Like you can't hop on a speakerphone at an airport.
Right.
You know, even in your hotel room, sometimes like the walls are thin and you feel like you're screaming at your computer. But for home, like this thing is great.
Nice. I have thought about picking one of those up and just haven't done it. Maybe you will convince me to go take the plunge.
Yeah, so like they range in price. I think the Jabra is like $140, $150 US, which could be a little bit expensive. But if you think about buying like a really nice pair of over ear or in ear Bluetooth headphones for doing conference calls, it's actually cheaper.
Right.
And for what it does to not have the and I'll call it a burden, like the burden of having to wear a headset. It was just a hugely freeing thing. And then it's got hardware buttons and all those other things. So honestly, I just like keep it on my desk and I slide it forward when I'm on a call. I've got hardware mute buttons. Like it all works in Teams and Zoom and all the things. So yeah, it's awesome.
How does it work for background noise? Because me being me and my 4 crazy kids in the background, like sometimes I go for a headset because they're screaming, although to be fair, it doesn't usually make much difference. But have you noticed a difference with background noise with that versus a headset?
So you do pick up more background noise, right? It's just a big ambient speaker.
So it's like a conference phone.
It is. But one of the other reasons to go with maybe like the 510 over even some of the like maybe like the 700 series, I forget if it's like the 710 or 720. There's some Jabra 7 something. The 7 something has multiple microphones on it. The 510 only has one microphone. So if you align the puck the right way, the microphone's really just pointing at you. Like in my case, I'm sitting at my desk here. I leave the mic pretty much pointed just straight towards me, and it seems to work just fine. Like I haven't had a ton of complaints. I don't have the same number of small minions that you do running around in the background, but I certainly have dogs and neighbors and lawns being mowed and all that stuff going on all the time. And I haven't really worried about it. And honestly, it's for conference calls. Like I'm not using it to record professional videos or like even like record my audio now for the podcast or things like that. Right. It sounds like you're on a phone call, but that's totally acceptable because that's what we're on. We're on phone calls.
Yep, exactly. Very nice. Nice gadget. So I use, and I'll go along with yours since we are talking about conference calls. I actually still use my AirPods. I, for the longest time, did not get AirPods because the cheap ones you always got with the phones hurt my ears.
Yes, earpods hurt your ears.
Yes, earpods hurt my ears.
Yep.
The AirPods, I have been very happy with these, and I use these almost all the time, although I've gone through 2 sets of them now. For some reason, my right one always seems to start flaking out on me after maybe a year or so. You might find that
that's the one you use more.
I absolutely use the right one more. But the ability of those, so the one thing, and you had kind of keyed me onto this, and I use it all the time now, is the fact that both AirPods have mics in them. I can seamlessly switch back and forth between the right and the left. Well, I'm in the middle of a phone call. If one starts to die or if I'm having issues with one, being able to have like the alert, hey, it's going to die, pop in the left one, wait for that one to connect, pop out the right one and charge it. Or again, if one ear gets tired of having that jammed in my ear all day, I can switch to the other ear for a little bit. So again, those are ones I don't know how long I've had them, but I use those things all the time. And I don't go for the noise canceling ones. I like to be able to hear what's going on around me. If I want noise canceling, I use the Bose. I have the 3500 or the QC 35-2 for those. But yeah, all my phone calls, conference calls, any of those, I just tend to use my AirPods.
Yep. So you would find, and I was kind of in the same boat. So I have a regular pair of AirPods with, like the thicker ones. And then I also have, the Pros in their little case.
Yep.
So I use like the Pros when I'm walking around outside, and I do want like the transparency or the noise canceling or things like that. Around the house, I wear the other ones because I'm not too worried about them. But if you find that when you're on calls and the clarity of a call on AirPods is kind of what you're going for, which I would say AirPods calls like definitely sound like you're on a phone call. Like they're not they're not demonstrably better and like they're in no way, shape, or form better than the microphone that's in front of your head right now. Right. But if you're fine with that sound profile, like just go get the Jabra thing and you'll be 100% happy with it.
All right. Sounds good.
Because then you don't even have to worry about them dying. And like for this like Jabra puck, I leave it plugged in all the time. Like, what do I care if the battery dies? I'm not going to use this thing like traveling around. Like, it's just another USB port on my computer. It's fine.
Right. Yep. That makes sense. So another one of mine, I'll jump to one that I use all the time, and it has served a dual use. As I picked up a couple of the Elgato Keylight Airs for a couple reasons. So working from home, having good light in my office has been something I've been wanting to do. Like, I have an overhead light right here. And if I actually, well, for those of you on audio, you can't see, but if you're watching YouTube, like, you turn this on, it just looks terrible. So I got a couple of those Keylight Airs, and the nice thing I like about these is too, you can adjust the color temperature of them. So I have a couple presets on there, one that I'm using right now for doing video, but if I want to use it early in the morning, late at night, I will actually turn one of them off. I'll adjust the color temperature to be more yellow, orangey, turn it way down. So I actually use them not only for lights just for video, but I also just use them for a normal desk light on my desk. So I have one right here, up to my right, that's kind of pointed down at an angle. So it will light the desk, as well as kind of give some light on my face when I'm doing video. And I have been really happy with these. They're a little pricey. I think they're like $120 a piece.
Yeah, they're like 120, 130. I think they retail for like 130 each.
Yeah, but in terms of doing video and also using it for a desk light, I've been super happy with them.
Yeah. That's one of those, like, you've sold me on them. I just need to like bite the bullet and buy them and then find room on my desk.
Yeah. So I have mine mounted. I have one that's on a stand on my desk. The one that's over like to my far right, that's kind of lighting me more from the side, is on the stand. But then the main one that's kind of right in front of me is actually mounted on an arm that I just clamped onto my monitor pole. So I don't even have to have room on the desk. It's just clamped right onto the arm that holds my monitor and a bunch of other stuff, and it gets it out of the way and puts it in a nice position.
Perfect. Speaking of monitors, I recently got a new monitor.
49-inch ultra-wide screen.
No, I did not go for like the Odyssey thing. So quite honestly, like I've been on a 34-inch ultra wide for a long time, like a 1440p monitor, and like 1440p is nice, but I find that there's not all the vertical screen real estate that I want there. Right?
Got it.
Like you're dealing with this, and really what you want is this. But like you want to be able to get there. So I recently picked up a 4K monitor. So Nils actually keyed me onto this one. He was the gentleman who came on and talked to us about kind of Kubernetes and AKS and his book that he had written. But he sent me he sent me an IM and he said, hey, like I picked up this monitor, and at the time he picked it up, it was, I don't know, $360. And he's like, it's okay, but it's on sale right now for $270. And at $270, it's a 32-inch UHD 4K monitor. And for $270, that's like stupid money to have a 4K monitor with a decent response rate. Like, yes, it's a VA panel, so viewing angles might not be the greatest. It doesn't have a USB hub and all those things built into it. But it does DisplayPort up to 1.4, does HDMI 2, it has two HDMI ports, one at 30 hertz, one at 60 hertz, has picture by picture and picture in picture, which if you've never, like, do you have that on your monitors?
Yes. I don't know about my 27. So I have a 27-inch and a 34-inch. And my 34-inch, I think, has both picture in picture and picture by picture.
Gotcha. So I took this, the first monitor I've had. Like I've had TVs with picture in picture, but never like a monitor at my desk. So I leave my Apple TV on my desk as well. And now that's plugged into one of the inputs on the monitor. So if I want, I can throw like Netflix on in the corner, like on the Apple TV doing whatever it needs to do, pipe the sound out from that to my speakers, and then have my big screen like doing the rest of the thing. And it's just kind of hanging out, and it's just a toggle away to flip back and forth between kind of what's the primary and what's the sub or secondary on the monitor. And like I said, for $270, like this thing is like totally acceptable and great. The stand sucks. Don't use it on a stand. Like, but I have an arm, so I'm not worried about that, right? Like it goes on a gas arm and I throw the stand out anyway. So that really didn't matter to me. Like I was going to be able to figure out the ergonomics and everything. It's super light, like 100% sold, like after doing some calibration and things on it. To the point where I might just go get a second one if there was a thing in Mac OS that supported MST and let you drive multiple monitors without multiple dongles. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Come on, Apple.
Yeah. DisplayPort daisy chaining on a Mac. I mean, come on.
Yep. But anyway, the Samsung UJ59 4K UHD monitor is like, if you're looking for a 4K monitor and you don't want to 100% break the bank, I found this one to be more than adequate. Like I've been super happy with it.
Very nice. That is not one of the things that is on my list to upgrade anytime soon. I have a couple Dells, a 27-inch and a 34-inch, and they both work great. And I think I'm going to stick with them for a while. And I honestly have no idea what I want to upgrade to once I get to the point where I want to flip them over.
Yeah. I got to figure out what I'm going to do with the ultra wide now. Right now it's back in the box and it went in the attic because it's too big to fit on my kid's desk. So it's like, I had two monitors at my desk. So I wanted to give both of them away and kind of try the single 4K monitor, maybe just the 4K monitor with my laptop open next to it, like on a stand. See how that went? And the 34-inch monitor is too big to fit on either of my kids' desks.
Got it.
So it went back in the box and it could easily fit on my desk, but I just don't know like where I would do it and how it would look. And
yeah, fair enough. So I'm going to keep going on the theme of my Elgato Keylight Airs. And I also picked up an Elgato Stream Deck this year as a gadget. And this is an interesting one because all the Elgato stuff is made by Corsair, which is technically, they have really focused a lot on gaming. The Stream Deck, the lights, everything was geared toward gaming. I use this Stream Deck all the time for everything except gaming. So I picked up the normal one. They have a mini, like the Stream Deck Mini, the Stream Deck that has nothing appended to the end, and then the Stream Deck XL. So
you've got like the 15
keys. And I have all kinds of stuff on here. So again, they were geared toward gaming, but they have stuff to, one, control my lights. So I can just turn my lights on and off by hitting a button on the Stream Deck. But they have Spotify controls. So instead of having to find keyboard shortcuts or bring Spotify to the front, I have a button that launches Spotify, that pauses my music. And the nice thing about their integration that they just rolled out with Spotify is you don't even have to have the Spotify app in the forefront. It like ties into the Spotify API. So I just hit play, pause. I don't care where Spotify is. I don't care what monitor it's on. I don't even care if it's the app that's in the foreground. But I can control all of my music with Spotify. What other ones? Let me pop it up. Oh, Teams. Like I have a button on there to launch applications. So instead of, I go back and forth with those. I don't use those as much because I still tend to use keyboard shortcuts and search to launch my applications. But I did add a button on there for muting and unmuting Teams. So one of the cool things with the Stream Deck is you can actually do a sequence of events tied to a single button. So this button has two events in it. One, it launches the Teams app, which if it's already open, it just pulls it to the forefront. And then the second command is just the keyboard shortcut to toggle mute. So whenever I hit the button, it just brings Teams to the forefront, hits the keyboard shortcut to toggle mute on Teams so I can instantly mute and unmute myself on a Teams meeting. So stuff like that, different apps. I have folders. So one of my buttons will like drill down into a folder for PowerPoint. I can control all my PowerPoint presentations from it if I don't want to click the mouse or use the keyboard, especially if I want to look at the camera right in front of me and I have the Stream Deck in front of me and maybe the keyboard's off to the side. a bunch of weird keyboard shortcuts for different programs that I don't want to bother to remember. I just map them to keys in there. So as I'm in different software programs, I have buttons tied to different keyboard shortcuts. So I have found a lot of uses for it outside of maybe what you would normally use with gaming. Just controlling different applications and tying or mapping different keyboard shortcuts and all of that to it.
Yeah, I can certainly see the appeal of it, and I don't know that I'm 100% sold. Like sometimes you have to play with these things and get hands-on with them.
Yep.
I was recently keyed into, and I haven't installed, but I haven't played with it like a whole ton yet, is a piece of software called Touch Portal. So effectively turn your phone or your tablet or whatever kind of like extra device you have going on into something that is similar to a Stream Deck. So no physical buttons because it's an app that runs on your phone, but it integrates with a controller on Mac or Windows, and then you can do the same kind of thing. Click a button and run automations, whether that's a single action, multiple actions. It has like broad support. Like I've been playing around with it for even like simple things like switching scenes in OBS. It's got Twitch support, Twitter, Windows, Philips Hue lights, Spotify, Ecamm Live, like all those kinds of things. So it doesn't have quite the ecosystem as Elgato and the Stream Deck. But if you're looking to like play with it and see like, hey, would this be a thing that is helpful to me day in, day out? Maybe you want to, if you're out there and you're like, you've heard of these things and you think maybe they're interesting, you might want to just like check out Touch Portal and see if you like that. And then if you like that, recognize that there is a hardware based way to go with potentially a more vibrant ecosystem. So I think of it as like Stream Deck like light. You know, it's like got training wheels, but it lets you get into that mindset of like, what could I do if I could push a button and the button could do things for me, and not just single thing, but multiple things along the way, right? Like open OBS, change to this scene and start streaming to YouTube for me automatically, or open Zoom and start my meeting and do what I need to do.
Yep, exactly. Well, and the advantage of that one too is if and when we start traveling again, it actually goes with you. Like I'm not going to pack my Stream Deck if I go on the road.
Yeah. So at least I'm playing with it. I don't know that I'm 100% sold. Like, and I think a lot of the things that like we talk about, right, you might find that they work for you and they don't work for somebody else, and that's okay. But I think there's lots of ways to play with this stuff.
Yep, exactly. Do you have another piece of gear that you like to play with?
We should talk about cameras, because we also both picked up we picked up some new cameras and things this year.
Yes, I have spent way too much money in this category this year.
You have spent like far more than I have, and yeah, like if we call it winning, yeah, you won that one. So I know you picked up the ZV-1, and I'll let you talk about that in just a second. But I picked up, and they've been very hard to get because, hey, pandemic and all that, and cameras are hard to find. The Logitech Brio, so the 4K Brio device, and it has been like just so nice to have something that is not the built-in webcam or running like camo or maybe like NDI tools or something like that, like NDI HX camera from my iPhone or from my iPad, which certainly gave me a nice picture, but it also had the delay that was associated with it, right? There is that kind of like just a couple milliseconds of latency to get through your home Wi-Fi and talk to a piece of controller software, and then it's got to be virtualized into a camera and go into whatever. So having a physical camera has been like awesome. And the Logitech Brio has been great. It does widescreen, like I'm in widescreen right now if you're watching this on YouTube, but it also does a standard size, supports NTSC and PAL, HDR, has custom color profiles, all those things. Like this was just another one of those like I'm not a huge fan of video meetings. Like if I had my preference, I would never turn my camera on for video meetings. But for better or worse, like I work, like my job, I work in the product group for Azure storage at Microsoft, right? And I don't live in Redmond. I live in Jacksonville, Florida. I'm disconnected from all my teammates. I'm certainly disconnected from the folks that build product, and I can't just fly to Redmond and walk around and meet people. So
Right.
like having FaceTime and being on camera is an important thing. And it's important. Like I found it personally important to want to feel like, the camera wasn't like just a blocky piece of trash that was throwing me out there. So the Brio was like it. Like once I found one in stock and got it ready to go, like it's been plug and play. It's awesome. It comes with a little like camera hider, so you can like blink yourself out very fast, and it's fine. And you plug it into like a USB 3.1 port, and then it does 4K and all the other things you would want it to, and it's actually like kind of sort of like brilliant for what it does. Just like like the Stream Deck and the Elgato key lights and things like that. You want stuff that you could just plug in. Like it might cost a little bit of money, but like just plug it in and it works, right? Like ready to go.
Yep. Well, and the nice thing about that too is if you are doing Windows, the Brio supports Windows Hello too, right? For the facial login, facial ID stuff on Windows 10.
It does. So the Brio is also a Windows Hello camera. So there are certainly like webcams that you can buy that have Windows Hello and things like that in them, but none that are like 4K, have software that actually work and are adjustable and ready to go. So it's nice to have all of that just built in and kind of there.
I'm back for those of you that watch this on YouTube. My kids invaded and opened the door and left the door open and started screaming. Speaking of work from home, I forgot to lock the door. I need to put a smart lock on my office door.
I'm sure there's some on sale right now, right? Like, sorry, honey, I had to deadbolt the door. It wasn't to keep you out. It was to keep me in.
Yes, exactly. No, I've heard really good things about the Brio. I almost picked one of those up. I went back and forth on my camera setup. So I've had a Logitech I think it's a 922 for a while now. And I still have it. I've used it every once in a while. It gives a different angle. It's sitting kind of 45 degrees off to my right. But I did a massive camera upgrade this year. And for me, it wasn't just work from home. Like you said, with the work from home, I think a lot of people have gotten used to their cameras being on. A lot of the updates with Teams and Zoom and virtual backgrounds have made it a little bit easier for people to turn their cameras on because they're not quite so worried about what's in the background. But I agree with all the work from home. Everybody's sitting at home in their offices. I've enjoyed having cameras on more and more just to actually like see people. And it's still a screen. It's not the same as sitting down for coffee or sitting down in a conference room, but I definitely think it helps.
Yeah. I'm not sitting here like I just want to be clear. Like I'm not sitting here saying you like have to be one of those people who has to turn your camera on every time. But I find that for the times when I'm like, all right, I'm ready, willing, and able to turn on a camera, like having a decent webcam, if not something that looks like better than decent, is awesome. Yes. It's nice to have it.
Yep. So my upgrade this year, mine was driven by a few things. One, we started doing some of the video for the podcasting once you got your Brio. But two, I've started doing more of those YouTube videos. I've started doing more virtual conferences. I'm starting to do courses and workshops now on my website. I wanted a good camera, and I was in your boat. I'd used my iPhone. I had tried different things with NDI, with different lightning adapters, different applications. And I found it was taking me way longer than I wanted it to set everything up to start recording. The C922 is still a solid camera for meetings and stuff, but it wasn't the quality that I wanted when it came to this. So like you said, I upgraded to a Sony ZV-1, which is a Sony mirrorless camera. It's almost pocket size. How's that? It was one Sony came out with this year, geared more towards vloggers. And it has an HDMI out. So you can get a clean HDMI feed out of the Sony ZV-1. I actually run that into one of the Blackmagic 810 minis, which has a few different HDMI imports. So I could add more cameras or other devices going into HDMI, but then it has a USB-C out into my computer. So I actually set the 810 mini as my camera now when I'm jumping on these podcasts, when I'm doing courses or workshops, when I'm on meetings. And that is pretty much what I use. I rarely turn my Logitech on anymore. The nice thing about the Sony ZV-1 is a lot of older DSLR cameras, mirrorless cameras, because of the way they work with the sensors, they would overheat and you would be capped at like a 30-minute time before the shutter would close. They have a setting on the Sony ZV-1 that allows you to essentially keep the shutter open indefinitely. I have heard of some people having it overheat if you're like 80, 85 degrees outside, running it for 4 hours.
Yep.
Excuse me. Personally, in my office where I have air conditioning, I have had it on 12, 13 hours and not had any problem with it overheating or shutting off. Again, it's a significantly larger investment to go that route, but for what I'm doing and what I want to start doing more with my company, it was a worthwhile investment for me, and it really does give me really good video.
Yeah, I think the other thing is, and you mentioned using the A10 Mini. Like, you don't need an A10 Mini to make a camera like that work. Like Canon and Nikon and GoPro, Sony, they've all released like webcam software for their DSLRs and mirrorless cameras and everything else they've got going on like over the last year. And the ZV-1 falls into that bucket as well. Like they do have EdgeCam software for that one, so you can just pipe it straight through. Like if you didn't need the HDMI live switcher like that.
Yes. Although, side note, Teams does not recognize the software, at least on a Mac. Zoomwell.
Well, we can blame the Teams team for that because they have lots of problems with Electron and GPUs and other things. But yes, that's neither here nor there.
Well, unless somebody buys this thinking they're going to use it for Teams, make sure that if you do go this route with Sony, Canon, Nikon, GoPro, that Teams actually recognizes the software. The other thing you can do is Elgato. By the way, Corsair stock has done really well this year. Elgato has their cam link, their 4K cam link, which is also significantly cheaper than the A10 Mini and gives you that same, it doesn't give you multiple HDMI inputs, but for most people, just one HDMI input is enough. And it'll convert that HDMI to USB A, and then you can use it in the same way where you just select that cam link for your camera in Teams, Zoom, whatever, and use your DSLR or other HDMI input device that way.
Yeah. Another thing that you can do, and I was doing this for a period of time in parallels in my VM software for Windows on Mac, because it was having corruption in cameras with like the GPU drivers, like the virtualized display drivers that they used, was piping to OBS first and then running from OBS, because that is recognized as an input stream to things like Team and Zoom and all that. So you might be able to find some like pretty easy workarounds there. And OBS has come like a long way. Like if you're somebody who like hears all these people talking about OBS and you're like, I don't need to do that. I don't like, I don't go on YouTube or like do like vlogs or Twitch or anything like that. I bet you could find a use for OBS just to make your life a little bit easier in meeting presentations, whatever it happens to be.
OBS kind of falls in that same category with a bunch of the Elgato stuff, where it was designed for gaming, but has found significant amount of uses within this whole work from home environment.
Yeah. Yes. Open Broadcaster software is awesome. OBS.
Yes. This is going to be a longer episode, Scott. It's all right.
It is.
We're having fun.
Let's see. What else? Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say there's all sorts of like, we talked a bunch about like hardware, but there's software and a bunch of other things out there as well, which have
Yes.
been very beneficial.
Since we started down the OBS side, we made that switch to software. I have not done as much with software. I'm trying to think. The only one, and we were talking about this right before we started today, is I recently tried Fantastical. And again, preface all of that with I am 100% an Apple user, iPad, iPhone, Mac OS. I have calendar issues. Doing consulting and with different clients I work for, I often end up with multiple email accounts. I think I have like 8 of them right now in Outlook. And most of it works, but the new UI in Outlook for Mac does not support on-prem Exchange. I have one on-prem Exchange account. My wife and I use a shared family calendar with iCloud and Apple calendars. And Outlook was getting me like 90% of the way there, but I had a few instances where I had meeting conflicts. I wasn't looking at the right client at the right time to get my meeting alerts and meeting reminders. So Fantastical, it is, in my case, I might end up paying the $40 a year for it, but it finally let me pull all of my calendars, connect to all of my accounts. There's a lot of nice features in it. So it's more than just a calendar in terms of some of the functionality. They provide some ways to schedule appointments with just like native or natural language, where I want to go here at this time on that day, and it'll create the appointment. But I'm trying to see if I can just use that as my calendar for everything. That's just my go-to calendar, all my devices. It's the same everywhere. It has all my accounts in it. So I can kind of leverage that as I schedule meetings and look at meetings. I'm still in my trial period. I think it's 15 days before I have to start paying for it. So we will give it a shot, but I've heard a lot about that app. I've never tried it. And over Thanksgiving, I was like, I'm going to give this a shot and see how it works.
Yeah, Fantastical is nice. I haven't spent a bunch of time with it on the Mac because I kind of split my time, like my work days in Windows, and then nighttime and weekends are on the Mac. So, I kind of try and find software that works on both sides, or things that'll like make my life a little bit easier. And when I was thinking about like, all right, what are some software that I find like really useful? Because I spend so much of my work time on a Mac. Like I think we talk about a lot of that stuff already, like PowerShell and Custo Explorer, and like, you spend a bunch of time in PowerPoint, Windows, and Outlook and things like that. So I tend to find like my time on a Mac to be like where I look for things that are really like make my life easier, or change my time, or make things maybe a little bit more Windows-like or easier to use. So for example, on Windows, I don't know if you've noticed, but as the pandemic draws out, like emoji has become like really just it's become I think what used to be a frowned upon thing as more and more acceptable in chat and emails and things like that. Like I find like within Microsoft, like all levels of the org, use things like that, and it tends to be okay. So on Windows, if you hold the Windows key down and you hit period, that will bring up the emoji picker in Windows 10. And I really like having the emoji picker and being able to go through and do that. And on Mac OS, there really is no emoji picker that's built in, right? You can type things and then maybe like right click and it'll try and like do like whatever smart blah, blah, blah garbage and change into emoji on its own. But honestly, like that crap doesn't work. Like, sorry, like Apple, go fix your machine learning for emoji. It's horrible. But there's a really cool piece of software. It's freeware, freemium, whatever you want to call it. It is called Rocket. And if you install Rocket, you can type a colon, and then you just start typing what you want. So like if I'm in a text field and I type colon smile, it brings up all the smiley face emoji, or colon poop brings up the poop emoji, like all those kinds of things. Yeah. So I use that one like all the time, because I just need to have emoji in my life, whether it's in like chat for work, or whether it's in iMessage or Twitter or whatever it happens to be. And most software has like garbage emoji pickers. Like I don't want to use Twitter's online emoji picker. I just want like my native OS emoji, whatever that happens to be.
Right.
So Rocket being just a colon, not yes, I have to hold shift down to get to it, but that's fine because I had to hold the Windows key anyway to do Windows and period to bring up the emoji picker on that side. So yeah.
You know where I saw an emoji the other day? In a file name. Somebody named a file and put an emoji in it in a PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah. Yeah, you can do that.
Worked.
Depends on your OS and file system, but yes, you can do things like that. A lot like you, I'm in the iOS and certainly the iOS ecosystem more than the Mac ecosystem. I guess I'm like a wannabe Mac fanboy. But one of the things that I use like a ton out of across both now Mac and iOS, like we just talked about ordering a bunch of stuff. And during the pandemic, like I've got everything shipping into my house. I thought I was a fan of Amazon before, but now I'm a fan of just ship all the things right to my house and I don't have to talk to a human, and that's excellent. So there's this awesome company out there called June Cloud, and they make an app called Deliveries. And Deliveries is like your one-stop shop to track every single thing that is being sent to you, whether it's LaserShip or DHL or Amazon or Walmart or US Postal Service. You could be in the UK, like UK Post, like Ozpost, like all those things are supported by that app, and it's super easy to just like highlight a piece of text in an email, right click, share to Deliveries, and boom, it tracks it automatically for you, or pulls all that information into a single app and ready to go. So I love that one as well.
Very nice. I was looking through my apps. I don't know that I have done a whole lot. I was flipping through my apps that I've installed to see what new ones I've used, because frankly, I've been in the work from home, working from the same computer. The pandemic didn't change the scenario for me a lot. So I wasn't necessarily looking for any new software or used a lot of new software this year. I will say the one thing, and I think this was in the last year, I tried to do was, we're in a subscription world. I get certain software subscriptions. But there are also times where I get tired of paying for software subscriptions. And one that I was getting tired of paying for was the Adobe Creative Cloud. It was $53-ish, I think, now a month.
Yep. It adds up quickly.
It's $600 a year. And Creative Cloud is great. But what I found is Adobe's pricing doesn't really work well if you just want 2 or 3 of their apps. Like you can pay $20 a month on an app by app basis, but then you get like 2 apps and you're right back up at 53, and you might as well pay the whole 53. I essentially used 2 applications from there regularly. I used Adobe Premiere for editing video, doing, again, YouTube video courses, that type of stuff. And I was using Adobe, and now I just completely blanked on the name, their audio software, Audition. Adobe Audition for recording all of our audio if I needed to edit some audio. I was really using those 2 apps, Photoshop every once in a while, and Adobe Acrobat every once in a while. And I have recently switched. I still pay like $15 a month for Adobe Acrobat. I don't know how much longer I'm going to keep that because frankly, I don't use it a whole lot. But I have switched everything to the Affinity products for my photo editing, which is a one-time purchase of $50. I use DaVinci Resolve now for all my video editing. And that one, you know what you get with free for DaVinci Resolve is
it's kind of amazing.
Impressive. It is. And I ended up paying for Studio there was a feature I wanted. I paid for Studio. Frankly, I think it had to do with multi-screen and I don't use it enough. I probably really don't need to pay for Studio or didn't need to, but that was a one-time $300 purchase. And I actually use Logic Pro X for audio. I could probably use GarageBand there's not a lot of difference between the two of them for what I do, but end of the day, I spent $300 on Resolve, $300 or 200. I think it's 200 on Logic Pro. I spent $50 each on the two Affinity products. So for a year's worth of Adobe, I now outright own all four of those apps, and I'm able to get rid of that Adobe Creative Cloud subscription. And frankly, after using DaVinci for the last year and a half, I like it a lot more than Adobe Premiere for what I do in the editing that I do.
Yeah, I there's definitely like free or freemium kind of products out there like DaVinci Resolve that just make life like super easy. I mean, I would put like OBS Studio into that bucket too, right? Like you just grab it and you start using it. You're like, really, this is free, and that's kind of it's just it's great. It does what it needs to do. If you are into software, and like you take a look at a lot of these things and you're like, man, it can be pretty expensive to buy a bunch of this stuff outright. And maybe subscriptions are your thing, but not necessarily like Creative Cloud subscriptions. I would recommend maybe folks take a look at SetApp. Have you ever heard of that one?
I think I saw that one the other day, or I heard about it somewhere. That's the one where it's like a subscription for a whole bunch of software, right?
It is. So it is Mac OS and iOS geared, like 100%. But I think that's kind of like the world we're talking about at this point. So it is $9.99 a month for an individual subscription, and you get access to 200 plus apps. And I think for most folks, like when I look at the list of apps that I have access to through there, out of those 200, 175 of them are like absolutely not helpful to me. I wouldn't say like they're garbage, like they're valuable to somebody. Obviously, like they're in that bundle and that developer is making money
they're not
somehow.
Ones you're gonna use.
But they are not things for me. But like SetApp includes Bartender in it. Like I used to pay for Bartender individually. It includes iStat menus. Used to pay for that one individually. Includes like Wi-Fi Explorer. There's some developer tools in there, like kind of like text generation and text manipulation services, or things like Marked, like being able to like do like markdown previews, like all software that I've bought in the past and easily adds up to more than $120, which is what I'm paying for a year of this service. And then they also have extensions that you can add. Like if you look at pricing for it, you can actually add an iOS device for an extra $250 a month, which is kind of nice. So any of those apps that are like cross-plat between iOS and Mac, or maybe they do like syncing with iCloud or their own sync services, things like that, you're not missing out on potentially having access to them on your iOS device as well.
Got it. Very nice. The only other one I can think of, I've used this one a fair amount. In this, again, I'm in a Mac world, so this is another one that's Mac only, is Web Catalog. Have you heard of or used Web Catalog?
I have not used Web Catalog.
So this is, I mean, it's kind of starts getting into that Electron world again. There is a freemium version, or you can go pay like, I think it's a one-time fee of $15. But what it does when you open it is it has all of those apps that maybe you would normally use in a web browser. So I was just pulling it up now. Gmail, YouTube, Facebook Messenger. It has all of the Office 365 stuff in there. Microsoft Teams, Word, Excel, all web-based. But it lets you install those as like a pseudo app on your Mac. So you can put an icon for them down in the dock. And what I've actually done is you can do custom ones. So you install Teams, and then you can do like a custom Teams one. So you can have essentially 5 instances of Teams all signed into different tenants, all with their own icon, self-contained application window, all of that running on your Mac. And it's essentially just showing you the web version of all these, but in their own windows.
So this is potentially a little bit easier to do than like PWAs and like Edge or Chrome, because I can do the same thing in Edge on a Mac, right, or on Windows, where I can say, "Hey, I'm on this website. Let's turn it into an app." So I've done that with like YouTube and Twitter and things like that, and then they get their own icons, and depending on the profile that you create the app from, it's associated with that profile. So I can have multiple instances of Teams in multiple PWAs. This maybe just makes it a little bit easier because it has another wrapper on the wrapper. Is that the
I would say this makes it easier than PWAs, and you don't have to worry about like your different profiles and which app is associated to which profile and all of that.
Gotcha.
And I don't know that things like, I don't know, I've never tried to make like Facebook Messenger a PWA app where you have a standalone Facebook Messenger app. I suppose because I think it must have its own URL. But yeah, I have found this to be easier than the PWAs, and I've had issues sometimes with PWAs on Edge on my Mac where I get into weird loops, or because it's a PWA, especially with some of the Office 365 stuff, I'll click on a link or something, and instead of opening it in the app, it like opens a new tab in my browser window. And I'm like, no, the whole point of this as an app was to keep it contained within the app, not keep popping it open in the wrong browser window or the wrong profile.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I found this easier to use because I have played with the PWA stuff. I like this better. And for $15, like a one-time $15 purchase, it works out pretty well.
All right, cool.
So I don't know if there's anything else. We've been going for almost an hour now. I just had to look at my time. I don't really have any other apps. Again, this year for me has been much more hardware focused, particularly around some of the video stuff, because I'm trying to focus more on that.
So I would say like there's certainly an app that I've used for a long time, and probably a good one to like close on, like just like general like life hygiene kind of things. Like get yourself a password manager. Yes. I'm a huge fan of 1Password. So like that's my password manager of choice, and been using it for years and years and years and years. And it's like one of those things like that is absolutely a piece of subscription software. And like I grumble every year when I have to pay some of my subscriptions. Like I hate that I have to pay for Dropbox, and I find it useful. Like that, like it's not delightful software to me. Like Dropbox doesn't make my life any better. It's like, oh, I got to spend $100 on Dropbox again. But like 1Password comes along, and I'm like, that's great. That's awesome. Like it's just a piece of software that works on every device. Like that one is iOS, Mac, Windows, Android, like you name it. Like if your toaster runs Android, like you can probably run 1Password on it. Yep. Don't quote me on that. I haven't tried it, but I'm sure it gets pretty darn close. And that is just like, I manage my entire life through that app, and it is brilliant. And yes, I know there are other password managers out there like LastPass and things like that. This just happens to be one that I have all my stuff already in. And you know what, like gravity of having all your information in the same place is kind of like sticky. So when gravity is that high, you're not able to like just jump off the planet and go to another one. So you might have a password manager that you find better, but like 1Password is totally my jam.
Yeah, I use 1Password too. I switched over to the subscription model, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago now. And the other reason I like it, frankly, is I have a lot of software subscriptions accounts. My wife doesn't have memorized everything I need. If I ever got
mine does not either.
If I ever got hit by a bus and she had to go in and start closing all my accounts, if I have everything in 1Password, she knows how to get into 1Password. Or if she has someone help her close all the accounts and figure everything out, I know as long as she can remember the 1Password password, she's going to be able to get in and access everything, every account that we have, every subscription that we have. And if she ever asks me, hey, how do I log into this? I say, it's in 1Password. Just go look get up.
Yeah, we do the same thing. It does form filling out everything. And honestly, I think it becomes more and more important to not to be morbid or anything, but you mentioned like being hit by a bus. The reality is a lot of these companies, like you mentioned Facebook, like Facebook does not let you shut down an account unless you can log into that account. So if you do have a loved one that passes and you need to control like that piece of software, like you're SOL, right? Like you can't get in there without the password to that account. Like Facebook doesn't care if you bring them a death certificate, like that account is going to stay live. So you have to kind of plan for those things and have them ready, and password managers make that easy. But like 1Password, one of the things that like totally sold me on it over time was that it can also support OTP codes. So, scan the QR code and do your one-time password. So as many of my one-time passwords as I can, I store in that system as well, because then they're synced across all devices and kind of like multi-device and just ready to go. It's gotten rid of that whole like, oh, Google Authenticator is only on my phone and I don't have my phone in front of me. Well, I'm on my iPad or I'm on my Fire, HD tablet, whatever it is, and I can just do what I need to do.
Yep. You sold me on that. I've started moving all of my one-time passcodes, MFA stuff into 1Password as well. That was one thing I hadn't done, and I have been doing that a lot more.
I was using like Authy for a long time because I wanted it to be multi-device, and I really did like that idea of being able to get to it like in Chrome on my Mac and Chrome on Windows and on my iOS device, like whether it was my iPhone or my tablet or my work computer, whatever it was. And I was like, if I'm just syncing this stuff to sync it all over the place, like I might as well just keep it with the passwords too. And like, I'm going to rely on that company to be secure for me.
Yep. But you better make your 1Password password pretty darn secure if you're going to do this.
Yes. Yeah. That took some selling with the wife to make like a that met the WAF, the wife acceptance factor.
Yes.
We had to come up with a strong and secure password that was also in some way, shape, or form memorable if it had to be typed in. Because with like Face ID authentication and Touch ID and all that, like you don't type in your master password that much anymore.
Right.
So, for like a long time, you would type it in like 7 times a day, and it was ingrained in your brain. But now you don't have to do that. So yeah, you got to make sure that it's something that can be remembered, and save your secret key as well. Like print that out and keep it in a safe or something.
Yes. Do you use the desktop version, or do you just use the browser extension on your
I do both.
Okay. Because now the desktop version too, you can unlock with your watch.
Yes.
Which is
yes, you can.
Nice.
Just double click and there it is.
Yep. Perfect. All right. Well, thanks, Scott. That was fun. We have lots more devices. I feel like we could talk about this for hours.
Yeah, when I put the notes together, there's totally going to be more things in the post than we talked about, but that's okay. People can have fun clicking around.
Yeah, I can give you a bunch of links too, because I probably have another 10 gadgets that I have on my list of what I use. Because we didn't even talk about like audio stuff for the podcast or.
Yeah, we could have gotten into microphones and USB
audio
USB
interfaces
pre's and audio interfaces. Yeah, I did include things like the Zoom H6 in the show notes because I know you're a fan of that one for like traveling around. And
I like that one when I travel. I have the Focus right on my desk. I have a teleprompter now.
Oh boy,
all kinds of fun stuff.
Yeah,
I have like a full-blown television studio in my office, Scott.
It's just what you always wanted.
Yeah, something like that. All right. Well, with that, I will let you go. Go enjoy the rest of your Thanksgiving weekend. Go buy some more gadgets that we can talk about next year, if we even make it that long.
I'm sure we'll be here next year, but thanks, Ben.
All right. Perfect. Well, I was thinking make it that long to talk about the gadgets. We just get so excited we talk about them way before next year. Yeah.
It'll happen.
I hope we're still here next year too.
Yeah. Calm down. It's right. Okay. Breathe. Deep breaths.
All right. Well, we will talk to you later, Scott.